In 2018, A24 brought us what could be considered the creepiest horror movie ever with Hereditary. Well, in 2019, they bring us The Hole in the Ground. It's a Gothic style horror, but is it on par with its predecessor? Premises: a single mom and her young son have moved into this house in the country in Ireland. And as they're renovating the house, they're out in the wilderness, basically. Their home butts up. It has all of this land and it butts up to this forest. And inside this forest is this giant sinkhole. I mean, it looks like a meteor, just crater. I mean, it's gigantic. And at one point, the little boy runs off because he's upset with his mom, and she chases after him. They run into the forest, and she tries to find him. And this is when she comes across the sinkhole. I mean, she almost falls in. And she's looking, she's just down there just trying to search because she doesn't know if her son fell in or not. And I mean, this thing is so massive that if he did fall in, I mean, he could have just been disappeared like that. And all of a sudden, her son appears behind her, and they go back inside and continue on with life. She has this really old, creepy neighbor, though, who sees the son and is like, he's not your son. And now the whole movie then begins, and it's this unraveling of, is this real? Is it not real? Is the mom just hallucinating? We get to see all of these different aspects of the kid and of their relationship, and we as an audience can't totally tell what's real and what's not, and if we're just being manipulated into thinking one thing when it's really another. Right off the bat, there is an eerie score and just some really good camera angles that just set an unsettling tone to the entire film. In most of the movie, there is some great cinematography. I mean, you have just some really beautiful wide shots, some medium shots that are just really well centered and well focused and that just draw your eye in. But then there are other parts where I don't know if it's shot at just a much higher frame rate or what, but it really resembles you watching a soap opera. I mean, if you can picture that in your head, you know what I'm talking about. The film quality goes from like cinematic to soap opera and then back. Now, I know this is a minor thing and most people aren't really going to notice it or even care, but as somebody who watches movies all the time, this did bug me a little bit that it wasn't consistent. I said the sinkhole is massive, and I mean it really is. It looks like a meteor crater. It really, there's a point where the earth is kind of falling in on itself, and it almost reminded me a little bit of a Sarlacc pit. Now, this is kind of a Gothic style horror, but it's not overly scary. I mean, really, there's an underlying tone of creepiness to it. The sound design also goes to really enhance this effect and really add to it. Sometimes just between the crunching of leaves or some of the wind or the creaks or just the score that the director has chosen. I mean, all of it together really works well to just really up the tension and the creepiness factor. The like, you kind of want to look over your shoulder a little bit because is there something there? And it's not like this outright terror though. There are some horrifying moments though, don't get me wrong. So it's not just all sunshine and daisies with a little bit of dark, or maybe even dark clouds and daisies. No, there are some scary moments, but overall, the whole thing isn't. There's a great mystery to it, a sense of mystery that you want to just figure out what's going on and what's true. And that's what really kept me just going and invested in the film the entire time. For me personally, there is one distinct moment that just really gave me the willies. I mean, just goose flesh, just the hair standing up. And I didn't expect it and I didn't see it coming. And it's not a jump scare. It was just the scene and the setup and then what is said and what happens. And it's like, ooh. I love in this that you get to see or rather not see some of the things that are happening on screen, that they happen off frame, but you hear them or you see the aftermath of it. And so what that did is that really, it relied on my imagination to fill in a little bits of those gaps, and I liked that part of it. Now, where I didn't like having to use my imagination to fill in some gaps is when it would jump time, that I didn't know exactly how long we had jumped. And so I really would have appreciated seeing more of that to fill in those types of gaps. For all the tension that's built up and the creepiness and just the unease that you feel, the ending ends up being a bit anticlimactic. I mean, it didn't have this great payoff that I was hoping it would. And honestly, the movie kind of just, ends and then it continues. There's a point to the ending scene, and I understand that, but it didn't really like, you know, one way or the other with the ending of the movie, you're like, yes, or oh, whatever it was, it didn't really cap it. It just kind of ended. So if you go in with Hereditary level expectations, you're gonna be disappointed. I mean, this is not the same type of movie. It's not even on the same level. I mean, A24 has done a really good job of bringing this creepy Gothic horror to us, but it's not breaking any molds. It definitely has like that uneasy tone to it, and it can get under your skin a little bit. So if you enjoy those types of things, you might enjoy this. There's no sex or nudity. There is some profanity and some violence. I give The Hole in the Ground 4 out of 5 couches. Are there any good Gothic horror movies that you've seen lately? I'd love to know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for catching with me.